Hey, what's up? Justin here. Welcome to 65 Drums. Today we're doing another entry in the Viewer Kit Spotlight series. So this is where we take drum sets of people that watch 65 drums, we break them down, we see what kind of sensors and drum heads and cymbals they're using, and then we do a price comparison to see how much it costs them to do all that to sort of give you inspiration for future upgrades you might want to make to your drum set. We've already covered like 4-ish other drum sets, so if you want to watch all the other drum sets in the series, I'll link the playlist down in the description below. Today we're covering Kenny's drum set, and as you can see, this thing looks pretty sweet. So as far as the shell pack goes, this is a Tama 1984 Swing Star drum set. Now, one of the toms is in 1980s. He doesn't know the exact year. He actually bought this whole set brand new back in the 80s. And then he also bought a Roland TD20 drum set. And so this is like the culmination of bringing both those drum sets together. So as you can see, he wrapped all the Tama shells, but he also wrapped a couple of the Roland pads, and it really blends the two kits together and makes them look like they're one kit. As far as the sizes, he's got a 13, 15, 16 set of toms, and the kick drum is a 22-inch bass drum. All of those toms have a set of Remo Silent Stroke heads on them. The cool thing about Remo Silent Strokes is that they're only like $100 to buy a whole set of them. He's using the Remo Silent Stroke heads for all the toms, but not his kick drum. Now, he did try that for a second, and he decided that it was way too bouncy. And I'm with him on that because I just don't like how bouncy mesh drum heads are when you stretch them across a giant 22-inch bass drum shell. You gotta have a really, really heavy mesh head in order for it to feel natural, like a Drum Tech Pro head. I have heard that some people have had great luck if they stuff an entire like comforter blanket from like a bed, like just stuff the entire shell full with a giant blanket. That does work for some people and it makes it feel really solid. But as you can see right here, Kenny decided to move away from mesh heads altogether on his bass drum, and instead he bought the Roland KD A22 kick drum conversion package instead. You can buy this and use it on any 22-inch bass drum out there. It's a conversion package. It's kind of hard to describe, but it feels really, really solid apparently. He's really enjoying using this over just a pure mesh head instead. The trigger in the middle of it is the same sort of material that you'll see on the kick drum on the Roland TD11 series and the TD25 series. That it's like a rubber cloth with foam mixture. Feels really solid to play on, but of course it does move around a little bit. It's kind of famous for that when you're playing it on a Roland TD11 or a TD25. But when you take that pad and basically shove it into a 22-inch bass drum, that sucker is not moving at all, and Kenny says it feels very, very solid to play on and he likes it. So switching over to the toms for a second, as far as triggers go, he's got clip-on rim triggers from Roland. This is the Roland RT30H series. Now in the series, Roland has two triggers, the H and the HR. That stands for head or head rim. You'd use the head rim one for your snare, and then of course just the single zone ones for your toms, unless you're a guy that plays on the rims of all the toms, frequently. It's a very, very popular trigger. If you want to learn more about these triggers versus the previous version, the Roland RT10 series, go check out my versus video on that. Just search YouTube for 65 drums RT10 versus RT30 triggers. So as you may have noticed, I've been kind of avoiding talking about the snare drum pads because they're completely separate from the Tama elements. They don't have acoustic shells. They don't have Remo Silent Strokes or Roland triggers on them. These are pure electronic drum pads. So he's got two Roland PD 125 pads. So these are the kind of pads that you'd see on the Roland TD20, and he actually ripped those pads from that drum set. Like I said, he started off with a Tama drum set and a Roland TD20 drum set, and he just combined elements of both to make this hybrid drum set. Converting an acoustic drum set into electronic is a lot quicker when you happen to have an electronic drum set already, because you can take all the, ride cymbal, the crashes, the hi-hats from that, and the drum module, put that on the acoustic drum set, and half of your job is already done. All you got to do now is get some mesh heads, some drum triggers, and you're good to go. And speaking of the cymbals, let's go talk about those for a second. He's got 3 Roland CY14C crash cymbals. 2 of them are crash cymbals, and the other one he's programmed to be a China cymbal inside of the drum module. These are absolute rock star cymbals. They're industry standard. The only cymbals that are stacking up against them right now are probably the new ATV cymbals that are getting kind of popular. For his ride cymbal, he's got one CY15R, the exact same one that I use. Very solid ride cymbal. He's also using a Roland CY8 cymbal as his splash, which is a really common cymbal for a lot of drummers to buy as a splash cymbal because it's just the right size and it's kind of cheap, and you usually don't hit splash cymbals that much, so it doesn't matter if you go a little more cheaper on the splash. And this, of course, brings us to the Gen 16 cymbals. Now, like me, Kenny got really excited about these when they first came out because they looked freaking awesome in all the advertisements. It was a really innovative step for Zildjian to take. Now, if I'm not mistaken, the Gen 16 silver ones were the first true low volume cymbals that were really popular. So when these bronze edition cymbals came out, Kenny went out and bought a whole package of them. And unfortunately, Kenny just wasn't blown away by them. He's not really happy with the way they sound. And unfortunately, I have to agree with Kenny. I've actually heard these played live on stage, and they made my ears bleed because when you plug them into the cymbal module, they don't sound good. They sound okay acoustically, actually. They sound better than the Zildjian L80s, but when you plug them into the cymbal module and it goes through the PA system, it sounds like trash. But in Kenny's setup right here, he says he's not actually using the cymbal module or the mics. He's just using them, acoustically because they feel really nice to play, and they feel better than like a VH11 if you just want to play and have something that feels really close to an acoustic hi-hat. Because really, the Zildjian Gen 16 cymbals are acoustic cymbals. They just have lots of holes drilled into them. And of course, the final element is the Roland TD20 drum module. This is the veteran. A lot of people have owned a Roland TD20 over the years. It's the industry standard, and of course, it's been replaced by the TD30 and then later the TD50. But this is a big stepping stone in electronic drum modules because it just sounded a lot better than most of the competition before it. Of course, there are Yamaha fans that will fight tooth and nail saying that the DTX Extreme 3 module was way better, but still, this was a flagship for its time. Apparently, he's had the TD20 for about 14 years now, and he's due for an upgrade. He said he's saving up right now for a Pearl Mimic, so I'm guessing he's going to sell this one and then use that money to go towards the new Mimic, which is right now the nicest sounding drum module out there. Now, the one thing a lot of drummers don't realize is that when you're looking at someone's drum set like Kenny's here, we're seeing the results of years of experimentation. He went through a lot of different iterations. He tried a lot of different things. He tried putting an electronic kick drum pad in his kick shell, and then he tried putting a remote silent stroke on it, and then he eventually went over to this KD A22 conversion package. So just keep in mind, it is a process when you try to convert an acoustic set into electronic. It is a process. So, little bit by little bit, you make the drum set better over the years. Okay, so now that you've seen a kit example and you kind of know the responsiveness and the performance of his set, let's talk about how much it would cost to create this exact setup right now. Now, the thing is, there's actually two prices here. There's the price that he paid for everything, and then there's the price that you could pay right now if you got all these parts and pieces from eBay. Remember, this drum set is an evolution. So he bought a brand new TD20, he bought a brand new acoustic drum set back in the 70s, he bought a full package of Zildjian Gen 16 cymbals and ended up only using the hi-hats. So there was a lot of experimentation, a lot of upgrades, a little bit of trial and error there. If you emulated this exact setup right now, just from parts and pieces on eBay and built this all up, including the drum wraps and all the, the extra snares, the cymbals, the TD20, you could do this for around $3,000. Hopefully this gave you an idea for maybe future upgrades to your drum set. I don't know. This whole series is not only looking at other people's setups, but also inspiration for our own setups and future upgrades. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch it. Go check out all the other drum sets in this series, and I'll see you in a few.